On June the 4th, 1985, the director of Requiem, Edward Richtofen, approved Samantha for Operation First Domino. After interrogating her for months and torturing her in order to get her to harness her own powers, he decided she was finally ready to defeat the Forsaken. And so when he was brought by Dr. Peck and Kravchenko from the Dark Aether to our world, Richtofen released Samantha, where ultimately she sacrificed herself, but in turn trapped the Forsaken inside of a containment chamber, where he was then transported away. Richtofen could now continue with his ultimate goal, Project Janus. He had the rest of the strike team, Weaver, Carver, Gray and Strauss, arrested and imprisoned on Terminus Island. Requiem was shut down and Richtofen became the director of Project Janus. Alongside the Janus board of directors, Richtofen decided that West Virginia was to be their base of operations. Setting up near a small town called Liberty Falls, they created a cover story in order to hide what they were truly up to, where they informed the citizens of the town that a nearby nuclear power plant had experienced a tower failure and was leaking, causing the townsfolk to evacuate and be placed in lodgings one county over. But not everybody left. The Project Janus board of directors established a disaster relief fund in coordination with the local government and soon began construction on a wall. 3 different venture companies were established so that they could begin to move in supplies, including a shipping company at the West Virginia Public Port Authority, which was crucial to the 5,000 tons of steel that they needed to be delivered, alongside boring machines that they needed to build out a tunnel network. Once the Project Janus facility near the town of Liberty Falls had been set up, lastly they hired a bunch of new employees, including a ton of scientists, military personnel, operations personnel, and custodians, meaning Project Janus could now get underway. One of the people Richtofen hired as his chief of security was John Blanchard, who helped oversee the renovations of a mansion that Richtofen wanted to use.
Chief of Security, John Blanchard. Inspected construction today. Project's really coming together, but I keep thinking about how my granddad wouldn't take me to Fort Washita when I was a kid. I wanted to do their bullshit ghost tour for Halloween. Sounded like dumb fun. Sorry, Johnny, that place is bad medicine. Granddad actually used those words, and he meant it. Now I'm starting to think the same thing might be true about the mansion. I'd like to believe Josiah Shem didn't know what he was doing when he had his flock build the place. If he did, then he got what he deserved. Shem's folly. Ain't that the truth? Every owner after him, captains of industry, gangsters, you name it. All their money and power couldn't save them. Shit like that doesn't just happen without other forces at work. Granddad knew that. But that's where the director wants to bunk down. And I can't talk him out of it. So my job's making sure he doesn't end up like everyone else who moved into the murder mansion. Lucky me.
Just some of the other scientists that Richtofen employed were Dr. Annette Pelletier, Dr. Panos, and Dr. Kyle Moline. Moline wasn't only a quantum mechanics specialist at Project Janus, but he also assisted Richtofen with the containment sphere that contained Samantha underneath his mansion. After she sacrificed herself to rid of the Forsaken, Richtofen contained Samantha inside of this sphere and had this facility constructed underneath his mansion where he transferred Samantha to, holding her captive for the next step in Project Janus, and also because she assisted in the death of Richtofen's wife and son, giving Weaver intel in which he acted upon and ended up accidentally burning down Richtofen's house with his wife and son inside. After moving in near Liberty Falls, the Project Janus executives set up personal accounts for all of their staff, which initially to the bank manager of this small town felt like a good fortune, like some luck had finally hit Liberty Falls. However, not long after, Richtofen approached him about conducting payroll through the bank, which to the bank manager, Benton, seemed like a strange request, and so when he was tasked to set up a financial pipeline for them, he refused. He didn't want to participate in what he thought was a money laundering scheme, but Richtofen assured him that it was just how his investors preferred to handle funds. But Benton could smell a lie, and when he told him he wouldn't do it, Richtofen replied to him that his investors would make him disappear, and that they'd go after his family and anyone else that they saw as problematic, leaving Benton no other choice but to follow suit.
December 3rd, 1990. My name is Boone Benson, manager of Liberty Falls Savings and Loan Bank. In the event that something happens to me, I want the following to serve as legal testimony on my behalf. First and foremost, I always had the community's best interests at heart. When Project Janus chose this town, I saw an opportunity to change our lives for the better. Well, you know what they say about roads paved with good intentions. In the beginning, everything was above board, not a penny out of place. Project Janus has set up personal accounts for all their staff, relocating Liberty Falls, which felt like a preview of the good fortune to come. Then, Director Richthofen approached me about conducting payroll through the bank, which seemed like a strange request. And those European investors got involved and ruined everything. Helping Project Janus was one thing, but the Avalon folks, they weren't like us. People here know a hard day's work. We're not criminals. So when I was tasked to set up a financial pipeline for them, I refused. I wouldn't participate in whatever money laundering scheme they'd planned. Richthofen assured me it was just how they preferred to handle funds for the project, but I'm no fool. I know a devil when I see one, no matter how fine the suit. When I still said no, he was very clear. If I didn't do as I was told, his investors would make me disappear. Then they go after my family and anyone else that they saw as problematic. Blood of this town would be on my hands. Jesus wept. What am I gonna do?
Now that Project Janus had been operating near Liberty Falls for quite some time, Richthofen's plans were well underway. Aside from dealing with Samantha in her containment chamber, he was also experimenting with teleportation by using Ethereum to disrupt space-time. And in order to learn how to do this, he intended to use Samantha, interrogate her, find out from her time in the Dark Aether what he needed to do. But the more Richtofen used Sam, the more she became erratic and defiant, with Dr. Moline even telling Richtofen that if he continued down to this path, it could lead to dimensional breaches, ultimately causing a zombie outbreak. But Richtofen didn't care, and he just kept ploughing forward. He was willing to risk it. The more Richtofen continued, the more he also overworked his staff, and some of them started to crack. And less than a week later, Richtofen introduced an anti-fraternization policy, enforcing a rule where different departments weren't allowed to interact with each other. He didn't want his employees to know the danger he was putting them in. Meanwhile, one of his other scientists, Dr. Pericles Panos, had noticed that Richtofen was slipping. He knew that the entire operation of Project Janus was just Richtofen's tinderbox, and all it would require to set it off was one lit match. Because he was one of the only scientists that was aware that Richtofen had contained Samantha, he could tell that whatever Samantha was telling Richtofen, it was causing his patience to wane, and the longer her promises to him remained unfilled, the more erratic his behaviour became.
Dr. Pericles Panos, Project Janus, Energy Research Division. It has become abundantly clear Director Richtofen is slipping. Thankfully, no one has noticed. As far as they are concerned, the director is fulfilling his duty. Modi is no different. Anything he receives from her island of horrors might as well be sealed with a kiss. She calls herself a woman of science. But that schoolgirl crush of hers is becoming problematic. No one sees that this entire operation is little Edward's tinderbox. All it requires is one lit match and foam. Whatever Sam is telling him, his patience is waning. The longer her promises remain unfulfilled, the more erratic he becomes. If we fail, it will all be down to Richtofen and his hubris.
Being a part of Project Janus's Energy Research Division, one of the things that Dr. Panos helped to create was the LTG, otherwise known as the Limited Transdimensional Gateway device, which had the ability to generate temporary portals between dimensions, allowing travel from one parallel universe to the next. And another thing that he created with the assistance of one of Liberty Falls' local machinists, Tommy Joe, was the Thrusterdyne Model 23. Tommy Joe was a World War II veteran, a moonshiner, but also a great inventor. And with Panos working close to the town and having got to know its residents over the years, he became acquaintances with Tommy, and they built the Thrusterdyne Model 23 as a whiskey still, with the boiler heated by one of Project Janus's jet engines. On the 18th of February 1991, Richtofen was lying in his bed in his mansion when he was having a dream of him in a park with his family, his wife and son. His wife started to complain that she was getting cold, and so Richtofen got up to go to the car to fetch a jacket. However, as he was walking away, his dream turned into a nightmare, and as he looked back, he saw his wife and son burning alive. Richtofen told them to run, but he witnessed both of them die. Suddenly, he wakes up from this nightmare, gets up, looks at the picture of his dead wife and son near his bedside table when the facility's PA system starts alarming that there's a dimensional breach in progress. He gets up, goes over to his security monitors, where his scientists tell him that there's something wrong with Sam and dimensional breaches have started occurring around the facility. Richtofen quickly grabs his Wunderwaffe DG2 off his bedside table, tells his scientists to secure the staff and that he'll handle Sam himself, as he runs out the room to see the zombies have overrun the building. His security, John Blanchard, gets attacked, but Richtofen comes to his saviour by zapping these zombies with the Wunderwaffe, and he tells Blanchard to secure the command post and get Liberty Falls locked down. As he continues to make his way through the mansion, fighting the undead, he reaches the elevator, but again gets attacked, forcing him to override the doors. Eventually he gets inside, presses the button to go down to the sublevel, however the elevator starts filling with a purple dark ether gas, which attacks him, and Richtofen says, "I swear to you, Sam, you'll never be free."
I swear to you, Sam, you'll never be free!
Before he disappears, and the sphere containing Samantha lifts up, and she says,
"But Edward, I already am."
As the zombie outbreak then spreads throughout Liberty Falls, everyone remaining in the town starts running for their lives as the zombies attack them. As the undead attack the church, the priest, Rakeshaw, begins to regret ever welcoming Project Genesis employees to the town and to his church to come and pray. He barricades himself in, but the zombies break down the door, and he is killed.
Whoever may find this, I want to let it be known that this community summoned this wrath upon itself. This church was a hollow vessel. Our prayers dwindle into a quiet whisper. Children running rampant with no humility or respect. Their satanic music playing incessantly. All of them sat in front of their television sets, worshiping that false prophet, blocking out the divine life. Those towers were built to test our faith, and we had none to hold back the evil within them. Janus people filled my church, drank my wine, asked for forgiveness. I was overjoyed. My pride blinded me from seeing their true design. Liberty Falls was chosen to be the genesis of the end. I gaze upon this rapture with calm and serenity as I await the warm embrace of paradise.
Dr. Moline and Dr. Pelletier attempt to close the dimensional breach by deploying the LTGs, but they get blown to bits. Realising that there's now no other way and the town is screwed, they have no other choice but to hide. Moline hides in a nearby store called Ollie's Comics, but is overrun shortly after.
This is Dr. Kyle Moline. I am a quantum mechanics specialist at Project Janus. Now, our attempt at gateway triangulation failed to close the dimensional breach. We never should have deployed the LTGs. That was a job for soldiers. Now the devices are scrap, and this town is screwed. I have no idea where Panos and Pelletier are. Nobody is on comms. I'm hiding out in Ollie's comic shop. If I don't survive, let this be my testimony. I put the blame squarely on Director Richtofen. He is obsessed with using Ethereum to disrupt space-time. That much I knew, but there was so much more I didn't. I assisted him with the containment sphere. Sam had become erratic, even defiant. Richtofen didn't give a shit. He just kept plowing forward. He was more than willing to risk what's happening now for whatever he was really after. I can't imagine what would motivate anyone to go this far. Considering what he's done, I hope he never gets it. Ollie, careful where you point her!
And as for Dr. Pelletier, she decides to hide within the town's bank vault, believing it's the safest place to wait it out until backup arrives. But she dies shortly after as well.
This is Dr. Annette Pelletier. We couldn't contain the breach, and the LTG's been blown to bits. The bank vault is gonna be the smartest place to wait this out. If I don't suffocate before I'm rescued, Moline and Panos' comms are dead. I'm betting they are too. I knew this day was coming. It was foolish to think we had more time. It started as whispers, these idiotic claims that Janus leadership was holding someone captive. But it didn't stop there. Other, more deranged gossip suggested the victim was being held in some sort of tank. I wrote it off. We were all overworked and some people were starting to crack. Less than a week later, an anti-fraternization policy was enforced. We weren't allowed to interact with other departments. Research teams are kept compartmentalized. It's essential to our work, but with Janus, was that also to cover up something nefarious? Well, I know as the conspiracies flying around suddenly had an air of legitimacy, and if even a fraction of it was true, everyone was in danger. I warned my team about the rumors. Fingers crossed they're still alive. Security was a different story. They chose to ignore the bossy lady scientist. Whatever. I may be bossy, but those negligent a-holes have killed us all.
Being one of the only ones left, as Dr. Panos tries to reverse the outbreak, he tracks down his friend Tommy Joe and gives him a diagram to turn their Thrusterdyne Aeronautics 23 into a weapon. All Tommy Joe would need to do to convert it was some wire, a handbrake, and a pressure gauge. But he only managed to fetch the engine before the zombies got to him. Almost tearing him apart, too injured to finish the job, he records a final message telling anyone who finds it to finish putting together their jet gun.
Well, shit's popped off just like he said it might. Pericles Panos, Ph.D. Not who I'd have pictured as my best buddy. But he's a good machinist and a no bullshit guy. He loves bourbon almost as much as me. We built us a whiskey still, the Thrusterdyne Model 23. I shit you not, the boiler's heated by a freaking jet engine. Panos, he worked at Project Janus, kind of a genius. Always bitching about office politics and weird experiments. Then today all hell breaks out, and he's trying to reverse whatever they set loose. He tracked me down, and he gave me a diagram, claimed it could turn the Thrusterdyne into a weapon. All I needed was some wire, a handbrake, and a pressure gauge. I only managed to fetch the engine before the maggot sex damn near tore me apart. Oh, hell, I'm too beat up now to go gate crashing. Need a lucky rabbit's foot just to survive out there. May as well fetch my own funeral wreath. But if you find this tape and you ain't as chewed up as I am, well, maybe, just maybe, you'll stand a chance of putting together my buddy's jet gun. Well, good fucking luck with that.
As Dr. Panos continues to attempt to close the breach to the Dark Aether, somehow his dimensional resonance gets reset, causing him to become trapped in a pocket within the Dark Aether. While he's in here, someone starts talking to him. Just breaking the fourth wall of this video here, we don't know who it is exactly that's communicating with Dr. Panos, but I believe it could either be Samantha or someone else that we haven't heard of yet. But whilst trapped in the Dark Aether, Dr. Panos and this other person talking to him make a deal. They will help Panos to escape the Dark Aether. They do that by building the SDG, otherwise known as the Simultaneous Dimensional Gateway, and in return, he will find their friends.
Fine, I won't tell them, but a deal is a deal. I'll find your friends, if I ever get out of here.
Which makes me think the voice that Panos is talking to in the Dark Aether is Samantha, because the friends that she could be trying to find are Weaver, Gray, Strauss, and Carver. And the other thing that makes me believe it could be Samantha is Panos says to this voice,
You know, part of me wants to stay. It's quite, trippy here. Okay, calm down. I guess you and I had very different experiences at university.
that he and them had very different experiences at university, and we know that Samantha Maxis graduated from Heidelberg University. So I believe he's talking to her in the Dark Aether, but at the same time, we don't know 100%, it could be someone else. But either way, Panos gets himself trapped in the Dark Aether and makes a deal with someone in there that if they help him escape, he'll find their friends. The next day, an elite unit is sent to Liberty Falls to investigate the outbreak. When they get here, Blanchard makes contact with them, believing they are Project Genesis' rapid response unit that he called in. However, they're not. Blanchard tells them that he's barricaded himself inside of the command centre and that they should see if there's anyone else left alive in the town for them to save. As the elite unit make their way through Liberty Falls, Blanchard tells them 3 of Genesis' scientists, Dr. Pelletier, Dr. Panos and Dr. Moline, are unaccounted for, and locating them and extracting them is now top priority. As the elite team continue pushing through the town, they eventually arrive at the church, where they step in to enter a Dark Aether pocket. Inside, they find the SDG generator, and upon activating it, Dr. Panos makes contact with them, telling them that he's trapped in the Dark Aether and asks for their help to save him.
Your Project Janus security, yes? A so-called rapid response team. Not nearly rapid enough, but I knew you would come. I'm Dr. Pericles Panos. I used to oversee dimensional research at Project Janus. And this is a little pocket of perdition that, unlike you, I am quite unable to leave. Somehow my dimensional resonance got, reset when we tried to close the breach, trapping me in the Dark Aether. But now, now that you are here, we can finally end this nightmare. My colleagues and I had 3 devices. Limited trans-dimensional gateways. Salvage what is left of them. That component, for instance, in the null-gravity field. With a little ingenuity, I'm sure you can retrieve it. Once we have enough parts to build a working LTG, then the shoe will be on the other foot. I patched into your signal now. I can assist you, but a lot of this you'll have to figure out yourself. I have an acquaintance in town who can help you gather the LTG components. A local machinist named Tommy Joe, World War II veteran, moonshiner, tough as nails. Find him.
Repeat, Alpha. Do you read me? Did you find Dr. Panos?
Yes, Blanchard, they found me. Now they need to focus on ending this outbreak. Try not to distract them.
The elite team explored the town further, where they eventually found the 3 pieces to construct Panos' and Tommy Joe's jet gun, and upon retrieving it, they use it to suck up pieces of the broken LTG so that it can be reconstructed. Once the elite crew build a new limited trans-dimensional gateway device, they retrieve one of Panos' Ethereum canisters from the STG and use the LTG to open up a portal to the Dark Aether. A Dark Aether creature then spawns in, where they kill it and trap its life force inside of the Aether canister. Once they manage to fill up 2 of these canisters and place them back inside of the STG, Panos says to the voice he can hear in the Dark Aether that part of him wants to stay there. Blanchard says to him, "Who are you talking to?" But Panos just passes it off, pretending it's no one. Anyway, with all of the canisters now inside of the STG generator, the elite team activate it and it begins unleashing a neutralizing energy wave. A bunch of zombies then start attacking them from the Dark Aether, where the crew kill the undead to empower the STG, causing an orb to appear above it and grow the more souls of the undead that went into it, where eventually it was big enough, allowing Panos to finalise the rest of his plan. As a blast from the generator pushed the elite crew back onto the floor, Panos approached them, cuts off Blanchard's communications, and uses his power to switch positions, causing them then to become trapped in the Dark Aether and him to be free, where he thanks them for volunteering to take his place before running off to settle a few scores and make promise on his agreement to find the friends of his Dark Aether acquaintance.